Hello, and welcome to your sexual harassment training course provided by the Chapel Hills Parks and Recreation. Let's start off with our learning objectives. Be able to define sexual harassment, be able to give examples of physical harassment, verbal harassment, and nonverbal harassment, be informed of the complaint process, and understand the repercussions of sexual harassment. Next are the sexual harassment definitions. Sexual harassment is any unwelcome conduct of sexual nature which makes a person feel offended, humiliated, and/or intimidated. It can include situations where a person is asked to engage in sexual activity as a threat to their employment, as well as situations which create an environment which is hostile, intimidating, or humiliating for the recipient. Sexual harassment can involve one or more incidences and may be physical, verbal, and nonverbal. Physical harassment. Physical harassment is any unwelcome physical contact such as patting, pinching, stroking, kissing, hugging, or inappropriate touching. Physical violence, including sexual assault, and job-related threats or rewards to solicit sexual favors. Verbal harassment. Verbal harassment are any comments on a coworker's appearance, age, private life, etc., any sexual comments, stories, or jokes, any sexual advances, repeated and unwanted social invitations or invitations to attend dates, insults based on the sex of the coworker, or sending sexual remarks over text, social media, or email. Nonverbal harassment. Consistent gawking or staring, lewd or suggestive gestures, winking, or any lingering at an employee's work area. Sexual harassment definitions continued. Anyone can be a victim of sexual harassment. It does not matter the sex of the victim or the sex of the harasser. Chapel Hills Parks and Recreation recognizes that sexual harassment may occur between people of the same sex. What matters to this company is that the harassment is unwanted and unwelcome. Chapel Hills Parks and Recreation recognizes that sexual harassment can be a manifestation of power relationships and can occur among unequal relationships. This includes, but is not limited to, supervisors and employees, managers and employees, and directors and employees. Chapel Hills Parks and Recreation has a zero-tolerance policy for anyone who may visit our facilities. This includes clients, customers, outside workers, contractors, or any other visitors. Anyone who commits sexual harassment will be reprimanded in accordance with the policy. Sexual harassment is not limited to our facilities. Employees found conducting sexual harassment at social events, business trips, training sessions, or conferences will be reprimanded according to the Chapel Hills Parks and Recreation policy. Filing a complaint. You may choose to file a formal or informal complaint. Regardless of what you choose, the designated sexual harassment person will take the allegation seriously. Please pause this video and take a few minutes to review the formal and informal complaint practices in the sexual harassment manual provided. Now, let's take a look at some scenarios. Scenario 1. A man has recently joined the lifeguard team. One day, he is on the pool deck for his shift and a new face enters. It is a young woman, and the man is attracted to this woman. The woman is likely in her 20s, and the man is in his 30s. During his lunch break, the girl enters the lifeguard room. She is going to be there for some time as she is between shifts on the stand. The man begins to ask the girl questions like if she would ever be interested in older men. He asks her if she has ever been with an older man. He asks her if she is of age. She tries to shrug off his advances, but he is persistent. She begins to get very uncomfortable. It is finally time for her to return to the deck for her shift, but she is scared to be alone with the man again. Please pause this video and discuss in small groups how you would handle the situation. Scenario 2. You are walking through the locker room to do routine checks. The men and women's rooms look to be fine, and you move on to the family change rooms. You notice that they are all empty but one. You think a family must be changing in there, but there are some weird noises coming from the room. As you walk closer, you hear that there are in fact 2 adults in the room engaging in sexual activity. This is a clear break of the policy of the recreation center. However, you decide to walk off, and moments later you notice 2 fellow lifeguards exit the bathroom. Please pause this video and discuss in small groups how you would handle the situation. Scenario 3. At work one day, your fellow lifeguard Jessica strikes up a conversation. You two talk for some time, and eventually she asks you for your social media information. You don't really want to give it out as you are a pretty private person, but you eventually give it to her. When you arrive home, she begins messaging you. The messages are pretty sexual in nature, but you shrug her off and tell her you are just not interested. A few days later, you are at work talking to a fellow employee/friend about your interests. You've been talking about your favorite movies, your favorite snacks, candy, and many other topics. You were unaware that Jessica was listening in. The next day, Jessica shows up with a basket containing everything you told the other employee about. You are taken aback because you had already told her you were not interested. She gets visibly upset and rude when you deny her and the food. She tries several other times to pursue you and ask you out for dates. Please pause this video and discuss in small groups how you would handle the situation. Scenario results. Scenario 1. If the girl felt like her life was in danger or simply uncomfortable with the situation, she should report the harassment. This situation should be reported formally. The man showed a clear interest in the girl and did not want to take no for an answer. He would likely need to be removed from the job or be given sexual harassment training in order to stay. Results for Scenario 2. The situation could be reported formally or informally. The lifeguard should immediately inform the managers of what he witnessed. It will be important that he tells them exactly what he saw. It will be important that he keep the conversation confidential. Although he was not the one engaging in the sexual act, it is still a form of sexual harassment. Imagine if a child had caught them. It is up to the managers to decide punishment or if termination is needed. Results for Scenario 3. This situation could have been reported formally or informally. If you felt like Jessica had finally gotten the hint to leave you alone, an informal complaint to your sexual harassment person may be enough. You and Jessica would need to sit down and have a conversation about what happened. A verbal or written apology from Jessica might be enough. If Jessica were to continue to pursue you or harass you, a formal complaint may be necessary. Repercussions of actions. Sexual harassment cases are taken on a case-to-case basis. The victim should always be consulted on what would be the best remedy of the situation. The nature of the repercussion will depend on the gravity and the severity of the harassment. Certain cases, especially those of physical violence, may lead to the immediate dismissal of the harasser. Anyone who has been found of sexual harassment on another person under the Chapel Hills Park and Recreation Policy is subject to the following repercussions. Management will provide a verbal or written warning to the harasser, adverse performance evaluation, a reduction in wages, a transfer, a demotion, a suspension, or a dismissal. Sexual harassment is a serious topic, with it happening to real people every day. It does not matter the age, sexual orientation, race, or gender of the victim or the harasser. There will not be backlash for reporting sexual harassment cases. Now it is time for a quiz. Question 1. What is the definition of sexual harassment? Any unwelcome or unwanted contact of sexual nature which makes a person feel offended, humiliated, or intimidated. Any sexual contact between two consenting parties, or any talking between two individuals. Question 2. Which is an example of physical harassment? Pinching, winking, or sexual jokes? Question 3. Which is an example of verbal harassment? Kissing, repeatedly asking for dates, or staring? Which is an example of nonverbal harassment? Hugging, winking, or sexual comments? And finally, question 5. What is a repercussion of sexual harassment? Termination, suspension, reduction of wages, or all of the above? Thank you for participating in the Chapel Hills Parks and Recreation Sexual Harassment Training. We hope that you have learned something new today. Please review the sexual harassment manual provided and ask your supervisor any questions.